Hello and welcome to the Commute on this, the 1st of February, 1984. No, 2018. Here's a song, let's get started. From the Free Music Archive, that is Makaih, Makaih. I don't know how you'd pronounce that exactly. Beats, Makaih Beats, with a track called Cool off Aspirational? Yeah, Aspirational Beat Taps something. I can't see the full name of the album. Nice little track. I liked that. A bit repetitive, needed to go somewhere, but given that whenever I've tried to make a music track, I can't get it to go anywhere, I'm not going to be too pedantic about that one. I liked it. It was a nice one. I've got another one from the same person, Makaih Beats, later on in the show. All music coming from Free Music Archive. Links in notes, please check them out. I'm going to start off with something that one of the things that I've seen and heard about on the internet is social justice white knights, or whatever they're called, where it seems like it's some guy coming in there and saying, yeah, I agree with all what the women say, and you can tell that they're just trying to get on board with the women. That kind of, and it doesn't even have to be women, it can be any kind of social movement. It would be like a white person going, yeah, I think the black people have got everything correct. Or I believe that whatever minority is being persecuted, they know what's going on. That kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff kind of annoys me. It's so obviously not genuine. It's like, come on, guys, let's be a bit serious here, and not just because somebody's a minority are they correct. For instance, I talked about actually on a different podcast now, but I talked about the fact that even though I definitely believe in having some cultural sensitivity towards the Australian Aboriginal population, because their people were wiped out by the whites coming here and building a system with which I benefit from, I'm not going to pander to you and tell you that your mythology of a great snake crawling across the land created the rivers. Because we've had people study the rivers and we know that that's not true. So I'm not going to pander to you and say, oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, the dream time. Yeah, that's great. To me, the dream time is a less educated, or not less educated, but it's the same as any religion that tries to tell you that this is how the world was created. At least science doesn't know if the Big Bang actually happened. They just have evidence of things that they think caused the Big Bang. Sorry, no, evidence that was caused by the Big Bang. But all these different religions and tribal groups and all that kind of stuff that created these things of what they think happened to create the world, there's no actual proof of that. Show us the giant snake skin. Show us something that proves that a snake did that. At least science comes along and says, well, erosion, water finds its lowest point, water flow does this, and over time you can see sediment and all this other stuff. It's got evidence. I've completely lost how I got onto that. That's right. Social justice, white knights. So, I don't believe in pandering to a group just because they are persecuted. The example being Australian native population, I believe some kind of compassion and what's the word? Some kind, just you can't ignore the shit that native Australians had to go through and still go through, and so let's try and fix that. But let's not sort of completely go wishy-washy and say, oh yeah, the snake did it, yeah. You know what I mean? So, I don't want this to come off as pandering to political correctness or anything like that. But I'm very pleased to see on the BBC website this morning, Formula 1 grid girls will not be used at races this season. I am 100% behind it. I'm a big fan. The only sport that I really follow is mixed martial arts, the UFC in particular. And it has been such an annoyance for me to see the ring girls. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It looks trashy. It doesn't look sexy. Don't get me wrong, the women are attractive, especially when you get to the level of the UFC and stuff. They're very attractive women. They're all vastly too young for me, and I probably wouldn't want to have a conversation with them. I'd probably dislike them if I got to know their personalities. But they're all very attractive, and they wear little outfits. That's great. But it annoys me because I'm not there for that. In this day and age, if I want to see girls in bikinis, I can go somewhere else for that. There's plenty of them all over the internet. When I'm watching sport, I want sport. And so the Formula 1 grid girls, it feels really objectifying to these women. Because it's literally stand there and look pretty and don't do anything else. Now, in this article on the BBC website, they do have a link here, which I haven't clicked, which the headline suggests why I loved being an F1 grid girl. And I've got no problem with that. If you want to be a grid girl or a ring girl for the UFC or boxing, then fine, great. I've really got no problem with that because I believe in a world where you can do whatever the fuck you want. So do it. But personally, it just comes across trashy. It just comes across as trashy and old-fashioned. If I want to see tits and ass, I can find tits and ass all over the internet. I don't need to see tits and ass as part of the appeal of other things. For instance, I assume that ring girls and grid girls and all that kind of stuff became a thing because it was, how can we get more men interested in this? I know, let's put some tits and ass on display for them. Because back in the day, you didn't get tits and ass everywhere. Everything was so restricted and it was always very polite in mixed company and all that kind of stuff. Whereas now, we're open, we're a bit freer. And I really don't feel like we need tits and ass involved in our sporting events. The interesting thing that I see here is from a quote from the Women's Trust, or a statement from the Women's Sports Trust, or Sport Trust. I have no idea who the Women's Sports Trust is, but this is their comment. We strongly encourage sports such as cycling, boxing, and UFC to follow darts and Formula One and reconsider the use of podium girls, ring girls, and octagon girls. First of all, UFC isn't a sport; it's mixed martial arts. UFC is the league, like NFL is to American football, and the NBA is to basketball. Secondly, darts. What the? Darts had girls? What were they? Dartboard girls? Darts had the equivalent of ring girls. Good on them for getting rid of. Apparently they've already gotten rid of their girls. But darts had ring girls. Wow. That you can just imagine the stereotypical fat guy doing darts and then the ring girl in a bikini going, "Oh, it's the next round." That's another thing, especially with UFC or mixed martial arts. They've usually got a big screen in the stadium. You just put the round up on that. You don't need some girl walking around. And when you go to an event, like I have been to one UFC event, you could barely see the ring girls from the distance away that you were. So it's only a TV thing. It's, yeah, just don't like it. Anyway, here's another song. I have to quickly go to my notes here. This is Rip de la Wise and somebody else. Carl Van Pervel? Something like that. With a bonus track.
I'm the greatest rapper of the century. Check your seeds, I'm the shit. Yeah, you heard me, I'm the shit. I'm so dope, I'm so that. Yeah, poetic like math. Tell me I'm a whack so I can compliment myself again.
Whether or not you back me or not.
And just like yesterday's show, I got caught out with how short some tracks are. That was a nice short one from Rip de la Wise and Carl Van Pervel. I have no idea if those names are correct or if the way they're pronounced is correct. All the music is from Free Music Archive. Links will be in the show notes, and you will be able to check out these bands and these artists. Multiple artists today coming from a search just simply for hip hop felt like it. And so we're getting some weirder stuff. It's not the studio produced, so it's studio produced, of course, but it's not the polished version. Because, for instance, that's one as well had the same feel that it needed to move to the next section. It needs to move and keep going on. But maybe the artist wanted it like that. So who am I to say? Now, an unfortunate topic that is just prevalent in our news cycles and the pain of our current society, if that's a way of correctly describing it, the pain that we have in our world at the moment is changing. I've spoken about this on other pods that I've done, and I don't even know if they've been released, but they haven't been listened to, that's for sure. And I've talked about how we're evolving. Humanity as a species and as a society, we're evolving. And we've got to a point now where even though we haven't quite fixed civil rights, now the focus is on, again, let's be clear, again, is on equal rights between the genders, an equal world in general. And so, just like the suffragettes back in the day, we are now pushing towards a much more equal and accepting world where women are not treated like second-class citizens. And at my previous employment, a year ago it must have been, roughly, when the first Women's March happened, there was at least a couple of old-fashioned guys there at work who thought it was a bunch of bullshit. It's like, oh my God, women have got it better than anything. We already live in an equal world, blah, blah, blah. And I ended because I like these kind of little debates and things, I engaged in this debate, and I didn't want it to be rude. I didn't want any problems or anything. I just wanted it to be a discussion. And because I don't know the answers to these things, I don't know how to fix women's the arguments and the issues that women are raising. I don't know how to fix them, and I think the best way we can get to fixing them is to discuss these things. And so I had engaged it and stuff, and I got to the end of it where I said, go home and ask your wife and daughters if they've got any stories or incidents. You don't have to get into detail with them, but just say, do you feel that way? Do you have that kind of thing? And I feel like the guy had at least 2 daughters, so let's say that there was 3 women at his house. I feel like at least 1 out of those 3 women would say yes. I was inappropriately touched at a pub once. Or I was told to keep quiet because I was a woman. My opinion didn't matter. Those kind of things are still out there, and we are slowly, because that's how evolution happens, we are slowly changing that. And the disgusting thing about this is that these things keep coming up where you hear about these terrible, terrible situations. Harvey Weinstein being the most prominent, I think, as not only a extreme, I hope it's an extreme case, but a case where one man has used power and influence, plus he is now, I think, a representation of the misogyny and rapey culture that is in that industry. The other big one, well, the other thing that's been really freaking me out is the amount of cases where somebody's been kept against their will for for decades. That's the stuff that really messes me up. And there was that one recently where the couple, their children, they had like 10 children or something, and they had them all locked up in the basement. It's like, how does that happen? How are these young people even functioning? And this the news article that I'm about to refer to is another example of that. I hate it. It's quite depressing for this kind of thing to happen, and I do apologise. This could be very triggering for anyone listening, but it is about the USA gymnastics doctor. And a few simple figures is enough to make you want to really hurt this guy. Quote, BBC.com again. Quote, the number of known sexual abuse victims of former USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar has grown to 265, a Michigan judge has said. At least 65 victims are set to confront Nassar, 54, in court this week in the last of three sentencing hearings, prosecutors say. Now, those two sentences are enough for me. 265 people do not come forward to try and get fame or money or anything like that of a guy who isn't famous. There's nothing to benefit from this except for some kind of closure, some kind of satisfaction is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Some kind of end to a painful experience for these people. He was early sentenced to 60 years prison for having child abuse images. I just think General Pop, that's all. Gen Pop's all he needs. Put him in there. He looks, in the one picture that Routers has posted on or they've posted from Routers, he looks broken, which is good. You want him to be broken because you want him to go into general population and to be hurt. Quote, the first to speak at Wednesday's hearing was 17-year-old Jessica Thomashow, whatever, Jessica, who said Nassar first molested her when she was 9. That's it. That's enough. There's no. This is an example where I am fully behind some form of corporal punishment. This man does not deserve compassion. I am very much of the opinion that it's not all, oh, you're evil, you were trying to do evil, you were trying to hurt people. I don't agree with all that kind of stuff, but in this instance, the punishment cannot be too severe to me. This is one of those instances where it's like, no, you're done. It's all over. There's no compassion. There's no try and rehabilitate. It's just you're done. Similar would be the difference between somebody killing someone in a moment of passion and mistake compared to someone who is just completely unwell and killed. You know what I mean? So in the throes of a passionate argument or of a tussle or some kind of thing, somebody hurts them and kills someone else, fine. That you need to learn from that. You can be rehabilitated, all that kind of stuff. But you cannot allow people like this who have abused 265 girls, some as young as 9, that needs to be bang, done. There just needs to be there's no question in my book about that. And I'm all for the discussion of what we should allow and what we shouldn't allow, but this is something we shouldn't allow. It seems pretty simple to me. But anyway, let's go with another song and hopefully it's not going to feel better, but MC Colour.
said grandma on the horror and I blasted in a town. I said wrestle with the bear, I said travel with the bears. Interspace collider, see it's happened so fastly. I hope you stop the rap, see I wrestle in the castle, see it ever so magically, ever so magically. Lovers on the haters, for the haters try to flavor us. Sound sweet behavior with a touch of new later. Broke from bounty greater than a savior of the neighbor. Open sweet sesame, flowing with the best of me. Great destructive destiny is hustling on the jubilee. It's very hard to disagree. There's dark smile when the practice isn't down. Where the fuck is over mine? Where the trees standing down? Where the hope is either flying and hope to see me trying. Hastily, I pray to see crazy to the maze to be. And wait for me to take a peek and wait a week for us to see. You can interrupt the speech when I'm telling who I'm yelling.
Seriously? Why do these things happen to me? Get cut off, or not get cut off. The track ends, and I've completely lost where I'm up to. Anyway, I'm going to finish off with a quick story. So I've got a little veggie patch happening out the back, and I keep telling myself I've got to dig up my potatoes because they're growing quite well, and it's time to dig them up. And this morning, it was still very, very dark. It's only just getting light now, but it was very dark, and I walked out through the lounge room, and I found one of my potatoes dug up and taste tested for me. I'm not sure which dog did it, but it just goes to tell you that you need to go dig up your own potatoes, doesn't it? Goddamn little puppers. They are awesome and adorable, and one of them is right in my lap at the moment and loving a bit of a rub and a massage because I don't have nails, so I can't scratch them because I'm a nail biter, so I give them little massages. And once this is done, I think we're going to go for a walk down the park, and then I'm going to dig up my potatoes because those little fucks have dug them up for me. So anyway, not the funniest story of all time, but you know what I mean. I think we've all got potatoes that our dogs dig up. Don't you think? Yep. Me too. This has been The Commute. I hope you're having a good day. I'm hoping that your day will get even better when you get to wherever you're going. And I hope I've made that commute a little bit better for you. If you want to tell me something, tell me at bobbyfreakout@gmail.com. I will I will respond very quickly because no one else is messaging or emailing me, so you'll be the first. Thank you very much. This has been The Commute. Please tune in tomorrow for Friday's show. Hopefully it'll go well, and have a good weekend after that.